What's going on, guys? And today we're diving into another terrifying Reddit horror story that honestly gave me chills while reading it. But before we begin, make sure to subscribe if you enjoy creepy stories, disturbing mysteries, and horror content like this. We're trying to grow this channel, and every single sub really helps out a lot. Now, with that being said, grab some snacks, turn the lights off, and try not to look behind you. The thing outside my door knew my mom's voice. In r/scary stories by Big Dash Studio 7936. Last year, my cousin stayed alone at his parents' apartment for a week while they were out of town, and everything was normal for the first few nights until around 2:30 a.m. on Thursday, when he woke up because he heard someone slowly knocking on his bedroom door. Not loud banging, but soft knocks, like someone trying not to wake the neighbors. And he assumed it was just a dream until he checked his phone and realized he was fully awake. So he sat there listening, and after about 10 seconds, he heard a woman's voice quietly say his name from the other side of the door. The weird part being that the voice sounded exactly like his mom, even though she was in another city, and when he called her phone immediately, it went straight to voicemail. The knocking continued for almost 5 minutes, and every time he tried getting close to the door, the knocking stopped, then started again the second he stepped away. Eventually, he looked through the tiny gap under the door, expecting to see shadows from someone standing outside, but instead he saw bare feet facing the wrong direction, like the toes were pointed toward the hallway, but the heels were toward his room. And he froze because he realized whoever or whatever was standing there wasn't facing the door at all. It was facing away from him, completely still. And then his mom's voice whispered again, "I know you're looking," even though he hadn't made a sound. After that, the feet slowly slid backward down the hallway without making a single footstep noise. And at the exact same moment, every light in the apartment shut off. His phone died instantly, even though it had been at 70%. And he sat in complete darkness until sunrise, too terrified to move. But the worst part happened in the morning, when he checked the apartment security camera near the front door. Because around 2:31 a.m., the footage showed his bedroom door opening slightly by itself, and someone very tall and pale crawling out of his room on all fours before disappearing into the hallway. Okay, what the F word? This made my hair stand up. Because imagine being alone in an apartment at 2:30 a.m., when you hear soft knocking on your bedroom door. Not loud, just slow, careful knocks, like something trying not to be heard. Then it gets worse. A voice says your name, your mom's voice, even though she's not even in the city. You call her, and it goes straight to voicemail. The knocking keeps going, and every time he gets close to the door, it stops, then starts again when he steps away, like it knows what he's doing. Then he looks under the door. Bare feet, wrong direction, facing away from him. And then he hears it whisper, "I know you're looking." Nah, I'm done. But the camera, that was even worse, because what do you mean it showed the door opening by itself and something crawling out, tall, pale, on all fours. Yeah, I'm never sleeping there again. I dove into a pool and got lost inside. In r/no sleep by Virgil_Vern. I used to be an Olympic track diver, one of the very best. It's not that I was talented or uniquely graceful. I was just obsessed. I dove every single day, no matter what, sanding down a rough edge or minor flaw every time my fist slammed into the water. I analyzed my form, perfected my technique, and sculpted my body until I could practically slip into the water with barely a ripple, and I was exceptional to everyone but myself. By my own standards, I wasn't good enough. This was a religion to me, and there was no such thing as attaining half nirvana. I wanted to be able to dive so flawlessly that the water embraced me like a lost disciple, let me pass right through without a single shudder. And I did it. It was about 6 months ago. My father's funeral was interfering with my training, and I was restless. The monotonous minutiae of a burial ceremony seemed utterly pointless compared to the one thing I cared about. I didn't care that the person who had first taken me swimming was gone. I didn't care that my coach had dropped me because of psychological instability. I didn't care that my fists and palms were constantly bloody and in bandages from being scoured raw, or that I was on unprescribed painkillers from the splints and microfractures in my forearms. I didn't care about any of it. I had to dive again. And so, on the night of my father's funeral, I broke into the city's indoor public pool. I climbed over the fence and found an unlocked emergency exit. I flipped on the only light switch within reach, an old filament bulb that gave off a dull yellow glow right above the pool. The smell of freshly chlorinated water was all it took to get me in the zone. I stripped down to my underwear, tossed aside the ugly suit my mother had forced me to wear, and climbed up to the high board, skin tingling the entire time. I was at the edge of the board in a few moments, breathing it all in. I flowed through each motion like a clockwork marionette, jumped, then dove. The rush of wind, contact, then the euphoric embrace. Perfection. I waited to ascend in rebirth and complete my 735th baptism, but nothing changed. I kicked a few times and reached out, but I only grabbed handfuls of water. Then I opened my eyes, and it was pitch dark. I couldn't even see my own hands in front of me. I assumed the bulb must have gone out. I kept kicking toward what I thought was the surface, but I couldn't even tell if I was moving. There was no sign of a surface or a floor. Just nothingness. Cold, apathetic nothingness. No sound, no light, no sensation, except the frigid water slowly draining my body heat, and then I saw a light. The bulb, I thought to myself, a cold blue glow in the distance. I could feel myself running out of air, so I swam, and I swam as hard as I could. The strange light became mottled and uneven as I got closer. Is this the moon? I thought. Then I slammed into what felt like a telephone pole. I reached out and felt it, smooth, curved, and far taller than me. To the left and right, there were more just like it, and beyond them, I started to feel it. Tendrils of heat and cold coming from some kind of abyss. I jerked back and looked up at the moon, and it dropped, slowly revealing a mottled, wart-filled, drooping surface. The size of a building, then two protrusions, each ending in glassy, frosted globes. And then I saw them. Teeth. Two intersecting rows of massive spiked teeth. I couldn't scream, I couldn't move, I just floated there, listening to my heart hammer against my ribs. The creature drifted closer and closer, brushing against me with its cratered skin and examining me with its frosted globes. Then it rapidly swam farther out, tossing me around in the wake of its massive fins. Once again, there was only darkness, except for that single light in the distance. As I steadied myself, I felt my feet touch the ground. I was elated. I could push off it and swim upward, but the ground was so soft that my feet practically sank into it. Then it began to move, laterally, like a treadmill, and I ran to keep up, vaulting over boulders and craters that suddenly appeared in front of me. Soon it was moving so fast that I couldn't keep up anymore. All I could do was tumble and roll. At that point, I desperately wanted to breathe. I was on the verge of passing out when the strange floor grew smoother and smoother until I rolled right off the edge and began drifting again. What I saw made me try to drown myself, but I couldn't open my mouth. An eye the size of a stadium wall stared back at me in the glow of the distant light. I was falling toward it, and the floor I had been thrown from was only one of several. One of them approached from the left, like a ghostly freight train. I couldn't even move to brace myself. Its wake alone was enough to throw me spinning. Then the impact hit me like a bus. I woke up beside the pool, coughing up jugfuls of water onto the floor. There was no one else around. The bulb was still on, flickering intermittently, and the pool was perfectly still. as if it hadn't been disturbed for thousands of years. I still had my funeral suit on, and I was perfectly dry. Not a single drop on me anywhere, except for what had just come out of my mouth. I looked at my watch. The glass was cracked inward as if it had imploded, but it was perfectly dry too. I quit diving that day, and swimming altogether. I have never gone near a body of water larger than a fish pond since then, and I never will. I don't know where I went, or what happened to me, but I break out in cold sweats every time I fill a glass of water, and I had a panic attack just walking past an aquarium at the mall. I don't know if I can continue to live like this. I desperately need help. Okay, I think this story is really about obsession and grief mixed together. After losing his father, the diver completely ignored his emotions and buried himself deeper into diving, treating it more like a religion than a sport. The endless darkness, the giant creature, and the terrifying underwater world could all represent his mental collapse from stress, isolation, injuries, and emotional repression. But at the same time, the story never fully explains what happened, which makes it feel possible that he actually encountered something beyond human understanding. And honestly, that uncertainty is what makes the story so disturbing. I just hope the OP is okay, because if any part of this really happened to them, that's something genuinely heavy to go through. A blackened creature has been following me for months in r/No Sleep Again by Vaclav. Something has been after me for months now. I don't know where it comes from, or even why it's after me. All I know is that this thing has been following me around for most of the year so far. My first encounter with it started when I was coming back from work. It's a normal office job. The average type you see in movies or can imagine. I had worked from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m., so I was really tired. As you can expect from sitting in a chair all day, sorting paperwork, and answering calls from people who love to ask dumb questions. My desk overlooks the parking lot of my office, and while I was logging off my computer and cleaning up my space, I saw a black figure dash across the parking lot. At the time, I thought it was just my tiredness. I've been having late nights and early mornings, so I assumed it was just my imagination. But looking back now, it was so clear to me that it was not in my imagination, as much as I wish it was. That night, I left my office and went back home. It was about an hour drive, so I got back around 11:30 p.m. I work in a busy area because the pay is better than the town I live in, but that doesn't really matter right now. I went to sleep, and at the time, the figure had completely left my mind. Until one night, when I was working late again. This time, I'd left work at midnight because I had loads of overdue paperwork after taking a week off due to an illness. As I was driving through a forest halfway to my house, something I thought was a deer suddenly ran in front of my car, causing me to crash. I got out and used my phone as a torch to inspect the damage. Luckily, I had only crashed into a bush, and there were just a few brambles and sticks stuck to the car. As I breathed a sigh of relief, happy that the deer hadn't caused too much damage, I went to get back into my car, and that's when I noticed it. A deep claw mark across the side of the vehicle, something only a bear could make. But where I live, the UK, there are no bears. At least none that I know of. Of course, I was freaked out, so I quickly got back into my car and sped home. I managed to get back to my house and tried to sleep, but I couldn't. I just had this overwhelming feeling that something was watching me through the gap between my window and the half-closed curtains. I tried for what felt like hours to fall asleep, and eventually I did, only to wake up at 3 a.m. to tapping on the window. There was about a 3-second gap between each tap, and that overwhelming feeling came back immediately. At first, I tried to ignore it. I thought maybe pretending to sleep would make it go away, but after dealing with this for so long, my fear got the better of me. And then I heard it. A deep, evil growl coming from that same spot outside the window. That's when I snapped. I grabbed my phone and ran out of the house without even locking the door. I jumped into my car and sped toward the city where I work while dialing 999. Hello, 999. What's your emergency? The lady on the other line said. I responded, probably sounding like I belonged in a psych ward. Please help me. Someone is watching me through my window and tapping on it while growling. I then gave my address and explained that I had left my front door open before arriving in the city. After that, I called my parents and asked if I could stay at their house for the night. They obviously said yes. I sounded desperate and completely terrified to my core. When I got to their house, I stayed awake for the rest of the night and the entire next day. Nothing happened. I called into work and told them my mental health was bad at the moment, and they gave me 2 months of paid leave while I figured everything out. That was probably the worst thing they could have done. Yeah, about a week after that encounter, I went back home. For the next couple of days, I struggled to sleep. Every night, I spent around 20 minutes checking if the doors and windows were locked, and making sure the blinds were completely shut. For about a week, nothing happened, and I still had a month and a half left before I had to return to work. I started feeling better, so I decided to face my fears and go for an afternoon walk in the woods near my house. But because it was still winter, mid-January, it got dark quickly, and it didn't take long for me to get lost. I tried to backtrack, then I heard it, that same deep, familiar growl. I turned around, and standing behind me was a creature nearly 7 feet tall, and its legs, arms, and body were jet black, barely visible in the darkness, and it was so skinny it looked almost skeletal. Its face was pale white, no eyes, no nose, no features at all, except for a massive gaping mouth, filled with rows of razor-sharp teeth that looked like they could cut through steel like paper with a single bite. I ran in the opposite direction, and I didn't stop. Behind me, I heard everything. Growling, panting, distorted groaning, and loud footsteps crashing through the forest. Eventually, I started recognizing familiar landmarks, and somehow I made it back to my house. I jumped into my car and started it up, and that thing punched straight through my driver's side window, and it tried to grab me, tried to bite me. I sped off as fast as I could while calling the police and my parents. When I got to my parents' house, I slept with the lights on for weeks. The police never found anything matching the creature I described, and after my work extended my paid leave, they arranged free therapy for me. I sold my house and temporarily moved in with my parents. At least, that was before I heard it again. Exactly 3 seconds between each knock. And then, that same deep growl outside my window once again. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you enjoy horror stories like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more. And stay safe out there.